Political satire is as old, if not older, than democracy itself. Benjamin Franklin used to talk about the colonial British rule in a very mean way. The reason why the media has grown to a $1 trillion industry that has global influence. Somebody somewhere is listening to an American podcast or an American song somewhere 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, somewhere on planet Earth. It is the entire planet. And the reason why I believe American media has been able to expand and become such an empire to the point where it can be dangerous. People can be influenced by what they see in the media and then go do really horrible things. A lot of us think it's the video games, it's calling all of the shootings and the killings. Well, that's a form of media as well. So I'm trying to illustrate, because I don't think you can overstate how powerful media actually is. Some of you are tuning in to me right now, consuming this form of media. The reason why I think it has grown to be so overwhelming, and it's used and it's manipulated for a variety of purposes. You can go on YouTube, which is a form of social media, and learn how to cook a pot roast. A pot roast seems like a very intimidating piece of meat to cook, but go on YouTube. You can use media to learn. It is the only business endeavor that is protected by the U.S. Constitution. Media and communication and editorializing and journalism is protected speech. It is foundational. It is bedrock. It is what we call one of those preservative rights. Nothing can interfere with it. Now, there's very, very specific rules. You can't use your freedom of speech to cause a riot or to incite violence. I can't go into a movie theater with my shirt off and yell fire, because that's not a nice thing to do. Now, there's specific laws that deal with that, but for the most part, and the Supreme Court has upheld and protected the First Amendment right of freedom of speech. I use it every single day. I am critical of things and of public officials that I think are moving in the wrong direction, a counterproductive direction that can do more harm than good. And it's legal, it's legitimate, and it is protected. Let me pause that point for just a moment. There will be a number of dates that will live in infamy, like when FDR said December 7th, 1941 is a date that will live in infamy. He was right. Pearl Harbor was a very big deal. There are other dates, I believe, that will live in infamy, not because we were attacked by a foreign adversary. September 11th, of course, would be another one of those dates that lives in infamy. We have a number of dates that will live in infamy in this current era of American politics, and one of those dates, I believe, is going to be September 16th. We saw something take place in this nation that I never thought that I would see. I'm not particularly a fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I'm not really into the late night shows. I'm not. They're boring. They don't really trip my trigger. Even when they do tackle political subject matter, they do so with a level of caution that just doesn't fascinate me, because I can go a lot further than a Jimmy Fallon. And here's the thing with Jimmy Fallon. I think he sucks. His monologues are terrible. He's a talented dude. Like, he does good impressions. He's a great singer, performer. He was good on Saturday Night Live, Jimmy Fallon, doing sketch comedy, but he's not very articulate. So I don't like the fella. I wasn't really a fan of Jay Leno either. Jay Leno, I got distracted by the shape of his head. But he was on for a long time. Jay Leno was 30 years, and prior to him, I think Johnny Carson was on for 30 years. But I've never really been a fan of the late night shows. Another fella is Seth Meyers. Seth Meyers, I think he also was affiliated with Saturday Night Live some time ago. Just not a fan of their shows. Jimmy Kimmel has been canceled. ABC and the affiliates that own ABC networks around the nation pulled Jimmy Kimmel. He is currently unemployed because of what he said about Charlie Kirk. What he said and the president's response in an interview that the president was giving. Jimmy Kimmel talked about the president's response. And I watched this clip. It's about a minute long. We're going to play it for you in a little while, of what Jimmy Kimmel said about President Trump in response to the Charlie Kirk killing was benign. I have said far, far worse, far more often. There's an FCC director who has a very significant job because the Federal Communications Commission essentially polices public broadcast airwaves. And Jimmy Kimmel broadcasted publicly, albeit later at night. It should be noted that late night television has more leeway in what they can say versus daytime radio, daytime television, etc. And I replayed over and over again what Jimmy Kimmel said that got him fired. And I said, there is another date that's going to live in infamy. It is a date in which freedom of speech is no longer respected by the executive branch of the federal government. Now it gets a little bit deeper than that. I want to make sure that I unpack this and demystify this because we are now living in an era in America I never thought would happen. Do you know how many people and broadcasters and journalists said horrible things about Barack Obama publicly on their airwaves that were controlled by the Federal Communications Commission, in which Barack Obama had the ability to appoint someone to oversee? Barack Obama never went after a media company. He never went after a late night talk show host. That's a part of it. This goes back to ancient Rome, political satire, and making fun of our leaders and using humor to do so, because what that does is it gets more people to pay attention to what is happening publicly. The Supreme Court has been almost like completely hands off. Like, you can say whatever you want about public officials, and it doesn't even have to be true because you are not stating anything specific about a private person. Once you become a public official, it's essentially fair game. And people that run for office and people that get elected, they know that. It's a part of it. Jimmy Kimmel lost his job. And also, there is a merger that is afoot where Nexstar is the name of the company, and they are trying to become the largest local television station owner in America. The Federal Communications Commission is going to have to approve this merger. ABC is a part of it. The federal government, controlled by Donald Trump, would get in the way of this $6.2 billion merger if Jimmy Kimmel was still on the air, and Jimmy Kimmel just happened to say something that Donald Trump didn't like. Jimmy Kimmel is no longer able to broadcast on ABC. This is a great tragedy. I also find it interesting that the president mentioned Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon as the next ones to go. There was somebody else he got somebody else fired too. Didn't somebody else, another late night host, lose their gig?
My guy Stephen Colbert.
Stephen Colbert, that's right. I need you to understand what Donald Trump is doing. He is criticizing individuals. More than criticizing them, he is taking the livelihood away from people who were using 2,000-year-old political satire that even the ancient Greeks respected. Now, if you say something the president does not like, you will lose your job. This is a point in American history in which I don't know how we continue with a constitutional republic if the First Amendment is no longer respected.